Dr. Amen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Zach, what a joy to be with you.
I always just cherish these moments of gleaning from your wealth of wisdom and knowledge and experience throughout the years. I was just telling you, I think God is continuing to expand your reach and your voice like never before. Everywhere I look on social media, on television, I'm seeing Dr. Daniel Amen, and what you're doing around this revolution of brain health is truly remarkable. We're grateful for your work and all that you do. But up front, you have so much going on. I'd be interested in hearing, what are you looking most forward to in this particular season of your life?
Oh, just continuing the revolution. Last year, there were 340 million prescriptions written for antidepressants in the United States. A quarter of the American population is on psychiatric drugs based on the wrong paradigm, right? When it is mental illness, we make diagnoses based on symptom clusters with no biological data. See, I'm a double board certified psychiatrist, and I was taught to diagnose crazy. That's crazy.
Right.
And what I've come to learn over the last, I decided to be a psychiatrist 45 years ago. What I've come to learn is most psychiatric illnesses are not mental health issues. Right. They are brain health issues. Get your brain healthy and your mind will follow. And so I believe God put me on the earth to upend this broken paradigm of diagnoses, of symptoms equals diagnosis equals drugs, and say what it really is. These are brain health issues. Right. And when you think of it as mental illness, it's like, okay, you have this diagnosis, take these drugs. When you think of it as brain health, you have to go to bed. You probably shouldn't drink. Marijuana is not innocuous. Right. You probably should take your devices from your children because they're addicting them to bad things. It just changes like everything we do.
Yes.
And I turned 70 this year, and so I know the gravity of age in the brain, and I'm not okay with that. So I work really hard to keep my brain healthy so I can do what I love for as long as possible.
Well, 70 years and still looking very young, my friend.
Thank you.
I'll tell you this, it's amazing what God is continuing to do in and through you. And again, this brain health revolution, I love the language that you choose. And like you said, when you talk about brain health, it makes things more tangible and more practical. It makes us feel like we have control and we are empowered to make those right decisions and choices. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Your most recent book is you co-authored with Dr. Charles Fay, titled Raising Mentally Strong Kids, How to Combine the Power of Neuroscience with Love and Logic to grow confident, kind, responsible, and resilient children and young adults. Up front, I've seen a lot of your work recently around mental toughness or strength or fortitude, and I'm interested, Dr. Amen, how would you almost define that for our audience today who has no idea what that actually means?
Well, it means that you can control your own mind. It means you can direct your destiny by harnessing the power of your brain and your mind. We are raising mentally weak children because we overdo for them. One of the concepts in the book I really love is if you do too much for your children, you are increasing your self-esteem by stealing theirs.
Wow.
That we develop mental toughness by solving problems.
Right.
So if my daughter would forget her homework at home, nobody's bringing it to school.
Right.
If she didn't bring a jacket on a cold day, even though her mother told her to, nobody's bringing her the jacket. It's so important to, when a child says, I'm bored, rather than you fix it, just say, I wonder what you're going to do about it. And then shut up. Let them begin to figure out their problems or the solutions to their problems rather than being overly involved with them. And I love this book so much. And it was just translated into Japanese.
Wow.
And they wanted us to write a new preface for the book because Japanese children are some of the healthiest, physically, but some of the weakest mentally. Of 38 Asian countries studied as far as mental health, they were 37th.
Wow.
And part of the reason is they expect perfection, but they don't teach them how to manage their mind.
Yes.
It's too often about shame. And I did my child psychiatry training in Hawaii, and most people don't know that Hawaii is an Asian culture.
Yeah.
2/3 of the population there is Asian. If you're Caucasian, you're a minority.
that's
My
right.
son got harassed for that when he was in school there. And I learned it's a shame-based society. If they have a mental health problem, they don't go to the doctor because they believe that brings shame on the family. Yet, they will do anything they can to give their child an advantage. So what if mental health was brain health? If we're like, people go to me because they want to be better. Like I often tell my patients, you're awesome. I'm going to help you be more awesome, right? It's about optimization rather than labeling them with a negative term.
And I love what you're referencing about kids, because we need to afford them the opportunity to gain independence, because without that independence, I don't think they can really understand what real and true confidence really looks like. And so this whole entire book, and I love what you're referencing about mental toughness or mental strength. A lot of what I've seen, even in your social media posts, you talk about how mentally strong people, they have these different traits or these different characteristics. One of them is that they're able to tell their brain what they want. Dr. Amen, speak to the importance of that, and maybe an exercise or two that we can begin implementing to be able to tell our brains what we actually want out of life.
This is so important. We live in a society of purposeless people. You know, when I ask my patients, and I've done this for 40 years, I developed this exercise about 40 years ago. It's called the one-page miracle. On one piece of paper, write down what you want, but it's in a very structured way. What do you want in your relationships, in your work, in your money, in your physical, emotional, spiritual health? What do you want? Because too often I ask my patient, what do you want? And it's like, I want to be married, or I want $1 million. I want to have big muscles. It's like, that's not quite what the question is. The question is, most corporations, like I'm the CEO of Amen Clinics, and we have a business plan. And we have this one-page strategic plan. We know where we're going the next 90 days. We know we're going the next year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years. But people don't do that in their lives. They spend more time planning their vacation than they do their lives. So the exercise, one-page miracle, one piece of paper, one computer file, just write down what you want. But what do you want in your relationship? So for example, with my wife, I want a kind, caring, loving, supportive, passionate relationship. I always want that. But I don't always feel like that. Rude thoughts come in my head. And I'm like, oh no, they don't fit. Like, don't say that. It's okay to be able to inhibit, right? Jerry Seinfeld said the brain is a sneaky organ. We all have weird, crazy, stupid, sexual, violent thoughts that nobody should ever hear. And just because you have a thought, most people don't even believe a lot of their own thoughts. It's just the noise and the nonsense. And too often people are afraid of the noise and nonsense because they don't know how to direct it. What do you want at work? You know, I want excellence. That's what I want. So does my behavior get me what I want? What do I want with money? I want value, which means I just don't spend things unless they fit my goals. What do you want for your physical health? I want to be strong. I want to have energy. And that's so important because too often when I deal with, and you know, weight's a huge issue in the United States. 74% of people are overweight, 43% of people are obese. And it's because of so many factors, but one of it is the 4-year-old in their head runs the show. I want what I want, what I wanted. But I love ice cream. Yeah, but it doesn't love you back.
Right.
And so when you go, well, what do you really want?
Yes.
Energy, memory, vitality, strength, it doesn't fit, right? And that's ultimately, I don't have any tattoos yet, but if I get one, it's going to be, does it fit?
Yes.
Does my behavior fit the goals I have for my life? So the one-page miracle, it's miraculous.
I love that. Those 3 words, like you said, does it fit? And you talk a lot about how we need rules, we need to know our values, and we need to know, in a sense, our beliefs and our goals in this life. When we have those things and boundaries, that's when we can become more mentally strong each and every day. I'm Zach Clinton here, co-host of Life, Love, Faith, and Family, sitting with probably the foremost leading psychiatrist in the country, someone who is on a tear and on a mission to continue to enhance the brain health revolution that our country is experiencing, Dr. Daniel Amen. Dr. Daniel Amen, I don't know if you saw recently, but Dr. Andrew Huberman out of Stanford was recently on the Joe Rogan podcast, and it went viral, where he was talking about how perseverance can almost be wired into us. It can be learned, it can be grown, it can be developed over time. And he was talking about a particular area of the brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, how it can be strengthened and developed when we choose to do things that we don't want to do. In other words, when we do hard things, not only can it rewire our brains, but it can actually make it easier to do other hard things later in life. I'm interested to hear your perspective on perseverance and resilience. Can these be wired into our DNA and developed by the decisions we make and the wiring of our brain?
Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with him. There's a term called long-term potentiation. And when the brain doesn't know how to do something, it'll try something new, shooting a free throw, and you'll be terrible at it because your brain has no pathways for it. But the more you do it, the better you get, and your brain begins to make connections. So every day you're creating habits of mental toughness or habits of weakness.
Yes.
Every day, if you just give in to whatever thought you have and you get distracted from your task, well, you just taught your brain to give in. Every day when you go, no, I'm just going to stick for 10 more minutes and finish this, then it becomes like you to finish things. And so it's building these neural networks. See, good habits and bad habits take exactly the same energy.
Come on.
You just have to develop them. So when I go to a restaurant and the waiter comes up and says, can I bring you the bread? And what do you want to drink? I'm like, don't bring the bread. And I bring me sparkling water to drink. And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, yes. And why do you want to ask me more than twice? Do you think I'm stupid? It's just a habit, right? And it's like, yeah, I love the bread, but it doesn't love me back. And I'm only doing things for me that love me back, right? I mean, that's really the sign of maturity. It's a sign that I love myself. Too often, it's like, have a drink. Bring the bread. Because if you do, it'll drop your frontal lobes and you're going to order dessert, even though you walked into the restaurant telling yourself you wouldn't.
Wow. It just shows us, right, that decisions determine direction and direction determines destiny. But this whole concept of what we've been talking about is that we have the power, right, to form the habits, to make the decisions, to control the pathways within our brains. And so being able to empower people is so significant in this aspect. Another big key, you talk about resilience, especially in raising resilient kids. And I truly believe in, as you already mentioned and alluded to, that resilience is rooted in relationships. There are so many times that there are a lot of individuals that struggle. And if I had a dime, Dr. Amen, for every time I've had a kid come up to me or somebody come up to me and say, I just got in with the wrong crowd, right? Interpersonal neurobiology talks about the components of attachment, its impact on the brain and on the mind. I'd be interested in hearing from your perspective how the company that we keep can actually help enhance our mental fortitude and strength in our way of life.
You become like the people you hang out with, right? People are contagious.
Yes.
So if you hang out with negative people, you're much more likely to have a negativity bias. If you hang out with people that are physically unhealthy, you're much more likely to be physically unhealthy. So choose your friends wisely. But there's an exercise in the book I love so much. It's called special time. 20 minutes a day, do something with your child that your child wants to do. And during that time, no commands, no questions, no directions. It's bonding. If you bond with your child will pick your values.
Yes.
If you don't bond with your child will pick the opposite values just to irritate you. And so people might go, wait, you said don't solve every problem for your child, and now you want me to spend time with them. Right. Because it's bonding, and bonding requires two things: time, actual physical time, and a willingness to listen. Parents, especially moms, talk too much. It's like, no, when the child says something, don't tell them how to think. Just reflect back, right? As therapists, they taught us active listening. It's a major therapeutic tool. I think everybody should learn active listening. So when a child says, hey, I want to have blue hair, rather than go, no, you can't have blue hair as long as you live in my house. It's like, you want to have blue hair. And then leave space in the conversation for them to tell you why. Right. And it may be they feel like they don't fit in. Now, that's the conversation you want to have, as opposed to fighting about blue hair.
It's so good. Just you're talking about these conversations, special time, the impact that we can have by the bonding and just the investment that we make in our kids and in this next generation. You're listening to Life, Love, Faith, and Family. We're joined by renowned psychiatrist, best-selling author, and a man who is one of the most powerful communicators in our day and age, Dr. Daniel Amen. Dr. Amen, this brings me up to the component. We talked about relationships, life, love, faith, and family. And now I really want to dive into the faith component. I want to talk about how does faith impact things such as mental strength, such as resilience, such as brain health, because I know you're unashamed of your faith in Christ. And that's what I love about you, is that you are a Christian who just so happens to be a renowned psychiatrist, but speak to the impact that faith can have on these areas of our lives.
If you believe we are here by random chance, it's really hard to sort of make sense of the world. And it's just taught everywhere that evolution, that we're random, that our lives really have no purpose or meaning. And I'm like, no, I don't get it. I think it takes way more faith to believe we have this intimate relationship by random chance, that the DNA of a cell, which is so complex and so beautiful and so rich, just happened for no particular reason. So if you believe in creative design, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I am not random. I am here for a purpose. I have been designed for a purpose. And I think Einstein said, you have to decide, is the universe for you or against you? And I happen to believe it's for us. And I'm here for a purpose. And the purpose is to make the world a better place. And I do that by me being better, by my relationships being better, and then whatever work God gave me to do, whether it's writing or speaking or research or whatever. I think to raise children in a godless home automatically increases their risk of depression. Because ultimately you have to ask the question, why am I here?
That's right.
What's the point of it all? And if the point is just me, well, that's not that exciting. If the point is we, so I was at the Olympics this year. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. We could talk about that because I have an Olympian that I worked with who I adore. But I wrote an article during the Tokyo Olympics on why I hate the Olympics. Because when you have to be the best, it's a prescription for misery.
Come on.
Because it's hell. Yeah. Hell is separation from God. Hell on earth is separation from each other. But when you have to be your best, well, that's a prescription for happiness. Because you don't have to beat other people. You just have to work to get better. And then you can bring the other people along with you. And I love that. I figured that out when I was in college, that I did really well in college, but I always helped other people do better. And I learned that when I was helping them study, I was actually solidifying the material for me.
Yes.
Good for them, good for me. And I love that mutuality. And so my Olympic athlete, she had a concussion right before Tokyo.
Wow. And
she didn't make one height. And she was depressed and in pain on antidepressants. She found me on Instagram. So these social media platforms matter.
That's right.
Right? They can be toxic, but they can be helpful.
Yes.
She DM'd me, and I have a show called Scan My Brain where I take influential people, scan them. And then I just fell in love with her, and I treated her. So it's Alicia Newman. She's a Canadian pole vaulter. And she told me, if I don't medal in Paris, I'll be a failure and my children won't love me. And I'm like, this is not mental strength.
Yeah.
So we killed the ants, the automatic negative thoughts that were stealing her happiness. Every day we won or we learn.
That's right.
So that was the mindset. You win or you learn. So you're endlessly curious. You do well. You're curious about you did well. You didn't do well. You're curious about why you didn't that. And she got the bronze medal. I mean, she was just a beast. She did her personal best on the most stressful day of her life. And I'm just so proud of her. And she smiled all the way through it. And if she would have gotten fourth, she would have still thought it was awesome.
Yes.
Because she did her best.
Yes. When you realize that you were created on purpose for a purpose and that your worth, your value, and your identity is detached from your performance, there's freedom in that. There's freedom to perform. There's freedom to live life differently. By the way, I saw the pics. I was jealous that you were over there at the Olympics. That looked like a blast, Dr. Raymond. But something real quick that you alluded to was just the power of, social media, of technology. And you've seen this. It's run rampant throughout our day and age. Our next generation is really almost falling prey to the addictive cycle that it can almost fall into. Jonathan Haidt has that new book out, The Anxious Generation, Technology Raised Generation, so on and so forth. I've heard you, though, talk about how we need to rebuild or redevelop those dopamine, areas within our brain. And how do we begin to do that, to actually have the dopamine for a positive impact and not just for a negative one?
So dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It's very important. I mean, all the neurotransmitters are important, but this one in particular, because it's involved in motivation and focus and joy and reward. And when you hit the dopamine centers or the pleasure centers too hard or too often, you begin to wear them out. And that's the problem. You remember Archibald Hart.
Yep.
And I loved him so much. And I loved his book called Thrilled to Death, which is really pushing on the dopamine centers too hard or too often. And when he wrote that book, children were in trouble in large part because of TV and video games. And now they're exponentially in more trouble because of social media and iPhones, iPads, devices that steal their attention. And now it's going to accelerate with AI, that they don't have to think, they can get ChatGPT to think for them.
Yep. It's amazing, just the world that we now live in. It can be dangerous, but like you said, it can also be used as a valuable asset if approached the right way.
Right.
And so
We're going to have to
continuing-
come to terms with it.
We are.
For sure. And so going back to Alicia,
Yes.
we had game day dopamine strategies.
Yes.
And actually, for dopamine, the short answer is you want to love your dopamine,
Yes.
which means don't dump it. If you dump it, it's not there for you. Cocaine dumps it, marijuana dumps it, alcohol dumps it, social media can dump it if you don't put limits on it. Scary movies can dump it. Fame, so many people want fame. One of my rock and roll Hall of Fame patients says fame is lethal because he saw so many of his friends die because of fame.
Wow.
And so you want to drip dopamine. So you want a little bit of it. Magnesium can help. Omega-3 fatty acids, having purpose, getting a massage, making sure you eat right.
Yep.
Like we measured her blood sugar levels for 3 months.
Wow.
Because she would go through these tournaments and she goes, I just feel flat. I'm like 2 hours in and I don't want to be there. I'm like, what do you eat before the tournament? Dried mangoes. Are you kidding me? Is what I said. You're going to give yourself a sugar burst,
Yeah.
and so your blood sugar will go up. So you'll be good for the first 40 minutes, and then your blood sugar is going to go down.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about decision making.
Yeah.
The thing that messes up decision making is low blood sugar.
Wow.
So I have one of my patients who was famous who just got in trouble all the time. You'd always see him in the news. And I caught his fasting blood sugar was 49. Now normal's like 65 to 100.
Right.
And when we got him to balance his diet, he stopped making the news in a negative way.
See, this is why I love talking to you, Dr. Amen. You have all the stories, you have all this wisdom, you have all this knowledge, but you share it with other people. And I'm so grateful for that. And as we wrap up our time, I wish we could sit down for longer, but as we wrap up our time together today, I love asking the question to the person out there who maybe feels discouraged or disappointed, who maybe feels like life just isn't the way it's supposed to be, who maybe feels mentally weak in this moment today. Dr. Amen, how can they begin to enhance practical steps, maybe one or two things that they could do in this moment and throughout the rest of the day to enhance their mental strength, to enhance their resilience, and even maybe to enhance raising mentally strong kids?
It all starts with what do you want? Write it down. Just do it in a balanced way. Don't go, I want $1 million. If you want $1 million, put that under money.
Yeah.
But make sure you know what you want in your relationships. And you have to focus on it, right? I know a lot of people talk about manifestation, but if you don't tell your brain what you want, it won't be able to generate the actions to get you to where you want to be. So what do you want? And then when you get a thought, just take it captive, right? John 8:32, know the truth will set you free. Just ask yourself whether or not it's true. Too many people live with these lies that run their lives, like I'll never be as good as someone else. Well, as soon as you start comparing yourself to someone else, you lose,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's like, let's stop that. What do you want? And is your behavior getting you what you want? And then whenever you feel sad or mad or nervous or out of control, just write down what you're thinking and ask yourself, is that true? Do I absolutely know that that's true? Start every day with today is going to be a great day. There's a whole thing we could talk about. I have new research coming out on negativity bias.
Wow.
It's very bad for the brain.
Wow.
Now, you don't want to be overly positive, like it
course.
can have the third beer and it's not going to negatively
Right.
impact my brain. No. But negativity, where your brain goes to darkness over and over again, actually drops the function in your frontal lobes, which is a very bad thing. So start every day with today is going to be a great day. And my favorite is end every day with what went well today. Focus on it before you go to bed. What went well? Your dreams will be more positive.
Wow. Know what you want. Focus on it, take every thought captive, choose gratitude, and then ask yourself what went well today. Dr. Amen, where can our audience go to find out more about you and just the invaluable resources that you have to offer?
Well, our podcast is coming out. We just re-released it.
Yes.
So I'm very excited. Change your brain every day.
Come on.
Practical tips and tools to have a better brain and a better life that can get raising mentally strong kids, or my book, Change Your Brain Every Day. Follow me on Instagram, doc_amen, or TikTok, doc_amen. Or learn about our imaging work at amenclinics.com.
Find Dr. Amen on social media, go to his website, purchase his book, listen to his podcast, Change Your Brain Every Day. Dr. Daniel Amen, on behalf of my dad, Dr. Tim Clinton, myself, and all of us here at Life, Love, Faith, and Family, we love and appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for your time and your willingness to join me today.
Love you back, Zach. Thank you.